In the year 2304 of the Imperial calendar, the climax of the Great War against Chaos was fought simultaneously at the gates of Kislev against the ever-chosen Azavar Kul, and at the Battle of Finneval Plain, where Malekith the Witch King and the greater demon Nakari had forged a pact to serve Ulthuan to the Dark Prince Slanesh on a silver platter. They were titanic conflicts, and tens of thousands of High Elves, men of the Empire, and Kislevites gave their lives in the fierce fighting. But ultimately, Chaos was pushed back into the abyss, and the forces of order prevailed, if only for a brief moment. In the aftermath of the Great War, Magnus the Pious, the Emperor of Man, sanctioned the construction of a new order, an institution that would harbor some of the greatest minds and warriors of the age, the Empire Colleges of Magic. In truth, the idea came from Lore Master Teclis of the High Elves, amongst the greatest mages the world had ever known. Teclis recognized that the threat of chaos could never be dealt with solely by the elves of Ulthuan, and understood that if the men of the Empire were not given the means to defend themselves, the next great chaos incursion could very well spell the end of the Old World. It's not so hard to imagine what a completely chaos-corrupted Old World would mean for the Western Hemisphere. It would only be a matter of time before the tendrils of change crept their way across the Great Sea and into Lustria and Lothern, and from there, the world would fall, which was completely unacceptable. So Teclis and his archmages sprung into action with the blessing of Magnus, who had witnessed firsthand the usefulness of controlled magic driving back the hordes of chaos. Magnus reasoned that if sanctioned wizards could be taught and properly trained, they would be an invaluable asset to the Empire. And Teclis realized that the Empire could be a formidable bastion upon which the ruinous powers would break. And so the Colleges of Magic were formed. In a brilliant stroke befitting the genius of one of the greatest heroes of the age, Altdorf was chosen as the site of the new colleges. Close enough to the Emperor's seat of power in Nuln for Magnus to keep an eye on the orders, but not so close that, should they implode and fall to darkness, they would drag him down before he could react. During his travels in setting up the colleges and gathering wizards to his side, Teclis realized that humans were simply incapable of controlling more than one wind of magic. Those that tried often met terrible ends, some decapitating themselves with psychic backlashes, some mutating grotesquely into spawn of chaos, some vanishing forever into instantaneous portals to another dimension. So high magic, the pure and whole strain of magic utilized by the High Elves of Ulthuan and Slann of Lustria, remained out of reach for humanity, and it always would. Teclis made it abundantly clear to the people of the Empire that death and disaster awaited those who thought they could. To that end, 8 colleges of magic were formed, one for each wind. The Light Order, the Celestial Order, the Gold Order, the Jade Order, the Amber Order, the Grey Order, the Amethyst Order, and the Bright Order. Now we could talk about every single lore of magic and order in the colleges, but I want to focus on the Bright Order and the lore of fire, those mages who study Akshi, the Red Wind. Bright Wizards are amongst the most visually impressive battle casters of the Empire, pyromancers who can create impassable cages of fulminating flame, or rain fire from the heavens in a torrent of destruction. Theirs is not a subtle art, where shadowmancy might focus on trickery and deceit. The flames of Akshi are straightforward and purposeful, magical artillery designed to kill, maim, and burn, or at the very least, deny enemy access to vital areas of a battlefield. In peacetime, they are employed as bodyguards of nobles and wealthy merchants, as their light and the prospect of a fiery death dissuade most assassins from acting upon those guarded by them. But because the world is in an almost perpetual state of war, they are the foremost recognizable form of battle mage in the Empire, those wizards who support armies on the battlefield. Their very existence is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, they are the most easily recognized casters in the Empire of Man, with some of the most experienced magisters literally wreathed in flame as they march, and as such, they are often seen as brave heroes and heroines defending the common people from the evils that wait outside the walls. But on the other hand, and by their very nature, Bright Wizards are quick to anger, tempestuous, and aggressive, and their thoughts alone can cause raging firestorms that could easily burn down entire sections of a city. As one might expect, magic is often a source of distrust, and combined with humanity's natural fear of fire, you might understand why many are hated and loathed as well. The symbol of the Bright Order is the Key of Secrets, which symbolizes the unlocking of power through knowledge. To become a Magister, aspiring Bright Wizards must pass through 8 gates over the course of their learning, each one marking elevation in the ranks and a greater understanding of the rituals and knowledge expected of them. Because pyromancy is by its very nature violent and destructive, apprentices first learn to control their own hearts and minds. Discipline is the key that unlocks knowledge of the flame. But while learning is extremely important, it isn't so much reading or writing that characterizes their instruction, but practical experience. Once an apprentice has learned the basics of the Order's spellcraft, he or she will be expected to be able to fight with it. Mock combat is a frequent part of training, then so is actual magical dueling for senior apprentices. Consequently, only the most skilled, most powerful, and quickest to think and react ever get anywhere in the Bright Order. There are very few dropouts. Apprentices either succeed in reaching the level of Magister, or they die in the attempt. This rigorous process ensures that only the finest go on to lead armies into battle, where a well-timed spell can be the difference between glorious victory or entire Empire regiments trampled into red mist. Famous Bright Wizards include Thyrus Gorman, who was the Supreme Patriarch of the Colleges of Magic until he was defeated by Balthasar Gelt in a duel, and Sienna Fuegonasus, an Estalian who traveled to Altdorf as a young girl, forged in the crucible of combat and the fires of the Bright Order. But she lacked the passion and patience for even the Bright Order's comparably up-tempo variant of schooling, and felt a void inside her that could only be filled by the addictive rush of intense spellcasting on the field of battle. One thing that isn't often discussed is the addictive nature of spellcasting. Imagine you were suddenly given the gift of controlling flame. Right now, sitting at your computer, you became aware of a fire burning deep within you that you could control. I imagine you'd want to use that power, right? Test it out, see what you're capable of. You might start with something small, like lighting a campfire with your mind and your breath, but next, you'd want to try something a bit more, maybe setting flame to a fallen tree. And now, imagine you're in an essentially medieval world where killing isn't necessarily wrong and there are all kinds of evil things around. At some point, you'd probably end up using your powers on a bunch of zombies or chaos followers, summon a huge fire tornado or something, and watch them burn. In the name of good, of course. And that power, that fire, would be addictive, like a drug. And then you start to use your power more and more, setting everything around you ablaze, and you attract the attention of 3 different sets of eyes. The Cult of Sigmar, who see unsanctioned magic usage as heresy, other Bright Mages, who can feel the disturbance in the ether every time you cast, and the Ruinous Powers, who see in you the potential to become their puppet. And that ultimately is the fate that awaits many unsanctioned mages: corruption by chaos, and a descent into madness. This is why the Bright Order and the Colleges of Magic are so important. Unsanctioned hedge wizards are often a serious threat to everyone around them, even the ones they love, because they have less control, less understanding, and more easily fall to the predations of Zeech. But if found early and taught, they can better learn to control their addiction and funnel their rage or natural aggressiveness into something productive. Sienna Fuegonasus, as many other Bright Wizards do, found her calling in battle. At the Battle of Leichenberg in 2518 of the Imperial calendar, she single-handedly saved the Deathjacks, a renowned Sterling archer regiment, from being overrun by an undead horde. A well-timed flamestorm spell made a grand bonfire of the approaching wall of flesh, and the battle was finally won with a devastating flanking charge from the Knights Panther. She became well known for her incredibly impressive Conflagrations of Doom, arguably the most destructive spell in the Bright Wizard's arsenal. Essentially, a fiery inferno which engulfs a large swath of the targeted area. It burns perpetually until nothing within the radius is left alive. As this is such a violent and powerful conjuration, all wizards within a 5-mile radius are aware of the disturbance in the ether this spell causes, and it is not uncommon for sanctioned Bright Wizards to seek out those who use this spell in a careless way and demand its use be limited. But it wasn't just her spellcasting that drew the gaze of the Colleges of Magic to her once more. Lost to the Bright College for almost 300 years, Uberstrike was the last place anyone would have expected the 4 Veltbrenner staffs to turn up. there was a substantial reward for anyone who returned them. But given the choice between monetary gain and soaring to new heights on the winds of Ashley by using a powerful staff, Sienna chose the latter. And equipped with the Weltbrenner Conflagration Staff, when the Skaven of Clan Fester began their invasion of Uberschreik, many met their doom amidst the flames of Sienna's making. As the Great Vortex grew more unstable, and the largest chaotic horde in recent memory began their assault on the Northern Empire, Sienna found herself possessing of an inconsolable rage, and felt an inferno burning deep within her that could only be quenched in the blood and burning fur of thousands of beady-eyed ratmen.